What's going on YouTube? It's a Theban Gamer here. Today we're going to be doing a tutorial about how to record in Streamlabs OBS with low-end PCs. In today's tutorial, I'm basically going to show people how you can record 1080p 60 FPS gameplay on a low to mid-range PC that maybe normally would struggle with it. I'm going to show you the settings in Streamlabs to make it happen and make it relatively easy. So what I do for my inputs is I use the game capture input. This is just more convenient for me, works out better, and it really allows me to use the settings I want. So we're just going to go into the settings right here. And we're going to go into the video first. In the video column, you're going to see the base canvas and output scale resolution. For the base canvas resolution, you're going to want to set this to your monitor's resolution. Or alternatively 1920 by 1080, which is most monitors resolution, but you're gonna want to set it to the monitor resolution. I set it here to 1080p, so I just want that 1080p gameplay. For output scale resolution, this one's really important. So for this one, if you were to set this to 1080p or higher, this would be a huge performance hit on your computer. So one tip that I saw that really helped me out was to set this to 1600 by 900. This is going to be recording in 900p, but this is so close to 1080p that it'll look the same after it's filtered, after the downscale filter and other things kick in. So 1600 by 900. If your PC is really slow, you can do the 1280 by 720, but that's going to look a little bit not as good, but it's not that far off. So make sure to set that to lower than 1080p if you have a low to mid-range PC. You can do the full 1080p if your PC is is more of a high-range PC, but that's not really the scope of this video. So that's that. For the downscale filter, this one's important. If you have different resolutions here, if they're the same, it really doesn't matter. But what you're going to want to do is set this to Lansos. This is going to be the best for scaling your video on this situation, and I found that this actually does not have that big of a performance hit regardless of what you do. So I just set the Lansos. For the common FPS value, this is going to be 60 FPS. This one, you really want to record these days on YouTube 60 FPS gameplay, right? People are not going to want to watch 30 FPS gameplay unless it's a slow game or the game just doesn't have a lot of movement in it. People are just not going to really want that these days on YouTube. So you want to leave it at 60 and then just sacrifice in other areas if you have to. You really can't do 30 or 48 anymore these days on YouTube. So now we're going to go to the output tab, and then we're going to go to output mode, and we're going to make sure it's in advanced, right? It's going to be in simple, just make sure it's in advanced. You're going to go to the recording tab, and this is where really the quality of recording gets decided. Here for type, you're just going to put standard. Recording path, just put the recording path you want. Format, you're going to use MP4. MP4 does have a disadvantage in that if Streamlabs crashes, you'll lose your whole recording, but I use it because it's just the most common format. You can also alternatively use MKV as well, just because if you get a crash, it's still going to save that portion of your file. FLV I would not use just because it's not really compatible. And then some of these other ones, I just really wouldn't use them. Audio tracks, just put how many audio tracks you have. Encoder, this one's pretty important. So this is basically where you choose whether your GPU does most of the work, your graphics card, or your CPU does the work. And in this case, if you have a low to mid-range PC, then really your graphics card is not going to be powerful enough to record and play a game at 1080p 60 FPS at the same time, right? So in most games, right, they tax your GPU a lot more than your CPU. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the X264 or CPU encoder basically. I have an AMD graphics card, so this would be AVC. If you have an NVIDIA, it'll show up as maybe NVENC or other things. But again, if you have a low to mid-range PC, you really would just want to use a CPU because you can find more workarounds and you have more performance available in your CPU on these low-end builds. So rate of control, you don't have to rescale the output, by the way. Rate of control, this one we're gonna leave as CBR. That's kind of the default. Some people have recommended CRF for CPU encoding. Do not use CRF. I've used it, and sometimes the picture can look better, but the file size and the performance hit is really large. The files come out to be, you know, multiple gigabytes for, you know, less than an hour of gameplay, and the performance hit is just huge. It's you know, I've tried all different qualities, and really CBR is the best one, the constant bitrate, because it allows you to just directly control the quality of the video. So bitrate, again, that is the quality of your video. Typically for 720p, I believe it's between 2500 and 3500, I believe. And then for more mid-range, near 1080p is, I believe, 4500. Sorry, 4500 to you know, maybe 6000. And above that, you just have higher resolutions. So what I did here is I actually put a higher bit rate, you know, which will how do I say it? Normally that would decrease performance quite a bit. Sorry, but in this case, it's gonna offset because you upscaled the resolution, right? Because you're using the 16900 in the video tab, right? As your scaled resolution, it's gonna offset the higher bit rate. So I put a 7000 bit rate. I would say between 5 and 7000. That's gonna give you a really good picture for the scaled resolution. Because if you put a normal, you know, 4500, 3500 bit rate, that's maybe a little bit lower resolution, it's not gonna look as great, and you're not really getting much out of it. So, you know, between 5 and 7000 for most. You know, using these settings for most mid-range and low-range PCs, and then like if you need to lower it, if you find that you're still having performance issues, you can just lower it as is. Keyframe interval, leave it at 0. CPU usage preset, this one's default very fast, and you want to leave it at very fast unless you're getting performance issues. I find very fast is really the best, you know, performance versus quality preset. Faster doesn't really, you know, give you, I think, that much improvement, and the super fast just makes it look, you know, not the best, to be honest. If you are having issues, you may have to put on super fast if you have a really old CPU, but very fast is like where I'd leave it. Profile, this one doesn't really have that big of a performance hit, so you can leave it on main or high, and you don't really do anything else. Tune, you don't have to do, and then X246 options, you don't have to do anything here. So with these settings, these are going to give you, I think, the best combination of performance to quality. You're going to get really good 1080p light quality, and with little performance hit, right? Right now, I have, for example, a quad-core CPU, and these settings still absolutely do well. They do not hinder the gameplay. They don't lower FPS by a lot, and they just work really well, right? You don't even realize you're recording. Is how good they are. So definitely give these settings a try. I find they've worked for me really well, and they just allow me to do what I got to do. So thank you guys for watching. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next video. Thanks.